Hello, my name is Danielle Hayduck. We're going to talk about why most flips go over budget even when you buy right. If you've ever had a flip go over budget or run late or turn into a contractor headache, it's probably not because you bought the wrong deal, it's because of what happens after you close. And most people never fix that part. Today, I'm going to show you a different way to run your rehab where you control the pricing, you control the contractors, and you control the timeline before the work even starts. Here's what most flips look like. You buy the property, then you bring in contractors, you get different bids, different timelines, different opinions, and now you're going to try to piece together a project from moving parts. Issue is, you've already given up control because you're letting your contractors define the pricing, you're letting your contractors influence the scope of your work, and you're letting contractors dictate the pace. Once that happens, everything becomes unpredictable. So, what do you think about budget overruns, delays, and long punch lists? Long punch lists is like one of my really biggest pet peeves because I remember my mentor used to have these huge punch lists at the end of his job. At that point, because he trusted nobody else, it was just him and this other contractor. And I heard him say to this contractor that they would bring in specifically for these things, he would say, "Come on, I need to list it by Sunday. I will give you $250 an hour to work with me." Now, that's ridiculous. My contractors never would leave me with a punch list like that. My punch list at the end of a job was all about cleaning. Anyway, so it's not because you're doing something wrong, but the problem is that your model itself is broken. What if before anyone stepped on the site, you already knew what everything cost, who's doing it, and when it's going to get done? This is the system that I use to run flips with control instead of chaos. The first shift is simple but really powerful. You stop asking, "What will this cost?" Instead, you define what it costs. At one point, we were living in a house I had bought with the intention of flipping. But in the meantime, I decided to redo the master bath. I brought in this talented contractor I'd met at Habitat. The scope of the work was to install a smaller shower, install a soaking tub. This guy, let's call him Charlie, came with a partner. So I quickly explained what I wanted and I asked how much it would cost. $7,000, Charlie answered. "Okay," I said. "And how long do you think it's going to take?" "Oh, not more than 5 days," he said. Oh, I like that timeline. So I said to Charlie, "I'm going to do the shower frame, install the plumbing, tile, and run the plumbing to the tub, right?" Charlie and I had already talked about what his areas of expertise were. So I turned to the partner and said, "So what are you going to do?" He said, "Oh, I'm the painter." I said, "But I don't need it painted. I have my own painter." "Oh, and by the way, I buy all materials. So the 7K, that was just for labor." "Okay, so if we take the 7K, I said, and we divide it by the 5 days it's going to take, I'm going to be paying you $1,400 a day, Charlie." The partner chimed in and said, No, I get half of that." I said, "But you're not doing any work." But I said, "All right, whatever. Even if you were, that would be $700 per day per person." I said, "Hey, guys, can I come work for you if that's how much I'm going to make?" "Well, we don't work on an hourly rate," Charlie said, which of course is ridiculous. I said, "Regardless, it's still $700 per person per day, and that is outrageous." So I sent them away, but I mean, Charlie did come and work for me later on with my system and on that and on many other jobs. With my system, instead of letting contractors bid, every part of the rehab is broken down and priced ahead of time. The kitchen, the bathroom, the flooring, the paint. So instead of reacting, you're opening from a known structure. The second shift is what changes everything. Contractors don't bid. They choose, as do your crew members. They look at clearly defined work at a defined price, and they commit to completing it. Now, there's no negotiation, there's no confusion, there's no "I'll get to it later," because the expectations are already set. The third piece is the timeline, not a rough estimate, a day by day execution plan. So everybody knows what happens today what happens tomorrow when their part is due, and that's what keeps momentum. So you might say, so what happens if there's additional work? You open up a wall or you open up a floor under the toilet and you realize that it needs to be replaced. Well, guess what? Yeah, you know what? There is a chance that when I pull up this floor or this toilet, I'm going to have to change the subfloor. Well, that's something that could be anticipated. There's a good chance that you're going to have to change something. So build in the extra time into your time frame, build in the extra money into your budget. And guess what? If you take up the toilet and you don't need to change the subfloor, well, wonderful. You can put that time and that money towards something else. Everything lies in the execution. That's where deals are broken, profits are lost. That's really what you need to concentrate on. This is what we do. We help rehabbers implement this system on their actual projects. That means we help structure your pricing. We help you map out your rehab and we help you run it correctly. Not only that, but we will do for you your timeline from day one all the way to the end, the day that you're ready to list it. And we'll hold your hand the whole way. We will give you information. We will check in with you. We will direct you. We will guide you. And we will answer any of your questions. So if you're already flipping or about to, and you don't want to learn this the hard way, then the next step is really simple. Book a call. We'll look at your deal and show you how this applies directly to you. The difference between a stressful flip and a profitable one is control. And control comes from the system you use. So pick up the phone today. 330-313-4403. Hope to hear from you soon.